Welcome to the Coping Podcast, where we share strategies for coping with the stressors of life, especially the difficulties of parenting. And here is your host, Dr. Lee Weiss.
This is Dr. Lee Weiss. I am the host of the Coping Podcast, where I feature top experts on topics like raising healthy children, parenting, and so much more. Past guests include Dr. Doug Bolton, Dr. Teitelbaum, clinician Ben Kessler, Dr. Aaron Fromm, and many more.
Just a quick disclaimer, the information provided is for educational and informational purposes only. This is not intended to provide mental health treatment and does not constitute a client-therapist relationship. The information provided is not a replacement for being assessed and evaluated by a licensed professional and is not intended to replace mental health or medical advice.
This episode is brought to you by Coping Partners. Coping Partners is a mental health practice in the Chicago suburbs dedicated to helping children, adolescents, and adults. We help manage various challenges, including anxiety, divorce, behavioral issues, relationship problems, and much more. Check out more episodes of our podcast and our website at copingpartners.com, and you can contact us with any questions you have. Before we dive into today's topic, I wanted to introduce today's guest, Nina Badzin. Nina Badzin is the host of the podcast, Dear Nina, Conversations About Friendship. She's a writer, teacher, and mom of 4 in Minneapolis who has been writing about friendship for over a decade. We will share all about her info and how you can read her newsletter and tune into her podcast and Facebook book as well. Nina has interviewed incredible people, including Gretchen Rubin and one of my absolute favorite psychologists, Dr. Lisa Damour. Today, we will be discussing the nature of adult female friendships and also talk a little bit about how moms can model and support their children in developing healthy friendships. So thank you so much, Nina, for being here.
Thank you for having me. I love that we're both Dr. Lisa fans. I quote her a lot because her wisdom has helped me personally as a mom, and it helps a lot of my listeners too.
Yes, she is number one on my I'm her biggest fan. She's up there in terms of mentors in the field. She's incredible.
Yeah.
So I want you to share a little bit about how you got into this work on friendship.
So I always love to make sure it's clear to listeners of my own podcast, to other people's podcasts, and I'm a writer. And writers, often of nonfiction, end up on a beat of some kind. You might be a travel writer. You might focus on politics. You might focus on health. You might focus on education. There's, people who go sit in school board meetings and all that. I have been on different beats throughout time, and I, through a very winding road, ended up in friendship, but by my own choice, because it's a topic that I have always been really passionate about. And even when I was playing with fiction for a while, it was always about friendship. And it started long ago with a novel I wrote and never got published. I'm so grateful because I still feel bad I made anyone read it. But it was all about 3 different adult women who realized they were all dumped by the same person at different times in that person's life. And they come together. And it was a great premise. I almost got an agent with it. But I realized it was the true bits of friendship that drew me the most. And so I would write articles about it and then be asked to write more. And eventually I was hired by a website that was focusing on female friendships as their entire focus to have an advice column to go with it. But I was very reluctant at first. I was like, but I'm not a therapist. I'm not a social worker. I felt funny about giving that advice. Now, I had other advice columns on other topics, and I really liked that advice voice. And the editors of the website were like, don't worry, that is what we're going to make the thing. We're going to make it that you're just a regular person who's oddly obsessed with this topic. And friendship was very important to my parents. It was a big part of my upbringing, was knowing who their friends were. Part of what we're going to talk about today is this is something we need to be doing for our kids. My parents put friendship very front and center. They were both very involved in their own things separately and as couples. They always had people over playing bridge. They were bridge people, big into bridge groups. My dad would have guys over to play basketball on a Sunday morning. My mom had book clubs and all kinds of things, and just socializing. They went out every weekend with friends. And I basically took that on as an adult in my own social life, but also to explain to other people that it is so important to stay connected and keep those muscles going, those social muscles.
So it sounds like you, again, from early on, had been exposed to really healthy social connections, and your parents are to thank for that. But why do you think it's so important that you've devoted 10 plus years to this topic, and you obviously think it's important in the lives of adult people, adult women. Why is it so important?
I think it's one of the most important things. And really, science backs me up on that because studies always show, and the biggest one that people talk about lately is the Harvard Adult Development. And I might be wording that wrong, but the long study, is one of the longest studies that has been done, generations of adults studying what has made people have long, healthy lives, both physically and emotionally. And it is the social connections. It comes up again and again that it is so important. And where someone like me comes in, I actually don't even spend a lot of time talking to people about why friendship is important. And you and I talked about this piece of the topic. When people pitch me to be on my podcast, I have guidelines for how to be on my podcast. A lot of people want to be on, which is great. It's a good problem to have, but I had to develop a system. And one of the first things I say is, do not put in your pitch that friendship is important. The entire thesis of my work is that friendship is important. That to me is a given. It's the next part that I really specialize in, which is how do we not get in our own way? So yes, friendship's important. You absolutely need to make time for friends. There's a lot of issues that people create for themselves. I'm not saying it's everyone's fault, but some stuff is. Some stuff we make harder than it needs to be for ourselves, for our kids. Our kids make things harder than they need to be. And then we as adults, instead of modeling a healthy mindset, get right deep into it. Yeah, you're right. She is a bully. Yeah, she is the mean kid. Well, hold on. Maybe we shouldn't be labeling so quickly. And we'll get into some of that.
Absolutely.
I don't know how or why, but I do have a very practical mindset. And I've been studying these things now for over a decade. The same issues come up again and again. And yet, 10 years into this, I still always have new material. But it's always in three buckets, Lee. It's making friends, keeping friends, and what to do when you are ready to end a friendship. Every person that writes to me, I get a lot of anonymous letters, and I have for over a decade. The details might be different, but they fall into those buckets. How do I make a friend? How do I keep a friend? Those are the biggest. We spend the most time on that. How do you keep a friend? And there's a lot of details in there. And then there's, unfortunately, of course, either somebody has decided to end the friendship with you and that's not what you wanted, or you know that something has run its course and it's very tricky to do that in a way that is not hurtful. So those are the buckets.
Absolutely. So I just want to piggyback on the part that you said is the premise, right? Like, why are friendships important before we quickly move on? Because I do think I work with a lot of parents in the community, and I think a lot of parents lose some of their own interests and their own self-care because they have no time and energy to focus on it. And they are really focused and they're really more worried about their kids. And I know that sounds really, well-meaning, but it's a problem, right? And so what you're describing in terms of the studies and what we know is that when women experience supportive friendships, there's actually a hormone called oxytocin that's released, right? It's like this feel-good hormone. And it actually calms the body's stress response by lowering the levels of cortisol, like the main stress hormone. And so we know, right? Actually having meaningful connections with friends helps us recover from stress and be healthier people. So I just wanted to make sure we're all clear. It really is worth focusing on adult friendships too. And then, of course, how we can help our kids too. And I think they go together, like you're saying.
Yeah.
So,
and one thing I'll add is a lot of people I'm hearing from lately, I'd say in the past couple of years, are in their 50s and 60s. And they will say that I did not put enough time into friendships in my 20s, 30s, 40s. I was building my career. I was building my family. And then they have a loneliness. And my message is always, it's never too late. I'm glad you're focusing on it now. I see it as an opportunity and I'm optimistic for people, but they're coming at me from a place of pain and seeing things on social media and feeling like it's too late. I missed out. So I just want people to know it's never too late and it is important.
Absolutely. No, I like that message too. So of all these letters that you get, these anonymous letters, I'm curious, what are really common themes, like you said, that you get asked? It sounds like they're very similar questions. Like, what are the most common pain points for people?
A big one, and it really is coming from parents, and it might be from for their own friendships or on behalf of their kids is this real stress about whether things are equal or not. And I talk a lot about this on my podcast, that if we could redefine what it means to have an equal and reciprocal friendship, people would be so much happier. So that's what I mean when I say sometimes we get in our own way. Mm-hmm. We all have different skills. And a lot of us are coming from the point of view of our own skills. So if you are a really organized person and you also are very extroverted and you like to have plans a lot, you're going to probably be better at reaching out to other people because it's important to you. You've decided it's a value. You don't like to sit home. Mm-hmm. If you're somebody who really doesn't mind just being home and watching Netflix and it doesn't bother you and you don't feel left out if you know other people are doing things, you might not reach out as much. Well, now we might have a mismatch in how we reach out if those two people are friends, but it actually doesn't mean there's a problem in the friendship. It's just that the person who does the more reaching out feels there's a problem because they have defined a good friendship as I text you this many times and then you text me exactly this many times back. And that's just one tiny example, but a lot of the letters are in that. That's what they're talking about in different details, describing it differently. But what the bottom line of is that they're saying, I don't really know if we're really friends. I feel that if I were to stop reaching out, that friendship would end.
Yeah. So there's a feeling of insecurity.
Yes.
The initiator, we'll call it. It's like, I'm always the one putting forth the effort, and it doesn't feel good because I don't know how this other person really feels. Do they really like me as much as I like them? It sounds like a dating relationship, but that idea. And it is true. I tell people all the time, like, try not to take things so personally because, like you're saying, maybe they're not the personality type or organized to do it. Maybe there's a lot going on in their life, but they're thrilled when you reach out and they're equally happy to get together and want to, so people do have strengths and weaknesses, and it comes out in friendships for sure.
Yeah. And a lot of assumptions are made. Like you're saying, not to take things personally is important because you just don't know what's going on in someone else's mind. And one thing I talk about a lot is that having healthy friendships takes a tremendous amount of humility because you have to be able to say, no one knows exactly what I'm thinking, but I know what everyone else is thinking. Like, no one knows exactly what you're thinking. And you also don't know what everyone else is thinking. And most things aren't as personal as we think. And if we could let it go a little bit. Now, I would never tell somebody that they should constantly be chasing a friend. If somebody doesn't respond back, that's different than someone who doesn't reach out as often. Those are two different things, but they are subtle. Sometimes people lump them all together. For sure. I'm always the one who reaches out. I'm always the one who reaches out. Well, hold on. Does your friend reach back pretty quickly? Mm-hmm. Suggest a different date? I really argue that those are equal. And that is a fresh way of looking at things. Not everybody wants to see it that way. They want to say, nope, everyone has to do friendship exactly the way I do it. We are all different people, including how we communicate with friends.
Mm-hmm. No, without a doubt. Yes, I think that's spot on. So I guess one other question I'm curious about, and then we'll kind of dive into some of the kind of friendship skills that we can hopefully model for our kids. But one question I'm curious about is, if you hear from a lot of your readers or listeners about a conflict when the parents are friends, truly friends, with their kids' friends' parents, and kind of like, if you've had any advice for those people who, inevitably will have something come up, right, that's uncomfortable.
Oh my goodness. This is a major topic. Our combined, or it's not the right word I'm looking for, but you and I share our admiration for Dr. Lisa. One thing she says often, and it's not something that I've really completely been able to follow, bless her that she's been able to. She really said that she made an effort to not be friends with the parents of her kids' friends. And I can understand not going out of your way to do it. Sometimes it just happens, right? That sometimes the kids become friends because you were friends. Like it's a chicken egg situation.
Right, it could be both ways, right?
Right. So I understand, though, where she's coming from. I understand why she says that. It's for this reason, because it can get really tricky. And I do hear from people in this camp a lot of this is how their kids made friends when the kids were little. Maybe you chose where your kid went to preschool based on where you live and you know some of your neighbors, or you chose it because your friends are there already. Maybe you have a kid a year behind or something. So you chose it for that reason. Your kids are growing up together. They enjoy each other's company until they don't. And inevitably, this is so tricky. I'm dealing with this right now in a newsletter, and I'm so curious about your opinion on it. I'm going to tell you in a minute what the question was. What do you do when your kid has gotten to an age where they want to express some agency in who they are friends with? And then we have the other parents labeling your kid the ringleader, the mean girl, the bully. And when you've been in that position, I've been in both positions just as a parent now. I'm not even talking from the friendship writer perspective. I have 4 kids. I don't know if we did say that in the bio, but
that's worth mentioning. I had to.
Yes. And I have 2 girls and 2 boys. I've seen a lot of things. And I do want to mention that their ages, just because I think it's interesting to know. I've spanned a lot of years, and technology has changed in those years. So I have a 21-year-old, I have an 18-year-old, a 16-year-old, and a 13-year-old. In the time that I've had kids, the 21-year-old and the 13-year-old are only 7 years apart. But think about those 7 years. Social media exploded. Even AI now, like the way my 13-year-old will have to manage and deal with that is so different from my older one. I bring up the amount of kids because I've had kids who have been on the side of not wanting to be friends with people anymore. And I've had kids who've been on the receiving end of that. And sometimes it is when we're friends as parents. And I certainly heard from a lot of people who they feel that, you asked me earlier, a common theme. This is a common theme. A friend of theirs has a kid who is in some way leaving their kid out. Mm-hmm. They may use expressions like, my friend's kid is being cruel to my kid. It could be really extreme like that. Of course, I don't get to ask follow-up questions. What is being cruel? Is being cruel they are not included in the homecoming group for high school? Or is being cruel like genuinely being picked on? Those are 2 different things.
Right.
Oh, it's so hardly. And one of the biggest pieces of advice I give that I had to learn through my own errors is adults should not be asking other adults to do a favor for the kid. That is my opinion. And I've seen it time and time again. It blows up. So what I mean is, friend A calls friend B and says, my kid has nothing to do for Halloween. Mm-hmm. And now I'm thinking middle school. Halloween's a big deal. It really is. And oh my goodness, it's one of the first things we think of in the school year. Is it's such a comfort when you know your kid has something to do for Halloween. It's like, you just feel like everything's okay in the world. And then when they don't, it sort of feels like a symbol of, or you put homecoming in there or anything, but I'm thinking a little younger. Right now, Halloween, something about Halloween. I remember it even as a kid.
Yes.
If you had Halloween plans, it's like, okay, that means you have friends. That means your whole school year is going to be okay.
There's a security of knowing what you're doing, what your costume is. If you're in a group and you're belonging, it's symbolic of so much more.
So many things. Oh, the costume, everything about it. It's very tempting if your kid has nothing to do to call the other mom. I'm thinking 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, a certain age it would be appropriate. And you, as the professional here, might know what that age is. And I'm not sure what that is. I can tell you that around about junior high, certainly high school, if you are still calling your friend, your mom friend, and saying, my kid has nothing to do, can you get him included, or can we maybe get him in the group chat? Okay, sure. Maybe you got your kid invited for Halloween, and now you've put a Band-Aid on a situation where that Band-Aid's going to come off because your kid was included as a favor. Right. And that favor runs out. And I really believe it's the kid who was included as a favor for Halloween in 7th grade who all of a sudden finds himself in 10th grade without a homecoming group. Because really, those friendships were not deep and real. It's all coming from a good place. So I don't mean to be negative. Maybe the kids said, yes, okay, fine, we'll include so-and-so because they actually don't want to be bullies. They don't want to be mean. They do want to be inclusive. But the chemistry is actually not there. And now we've pushed forward. We've kicked the can down the road, a situation that probably should have been dealt with in junior high, which is let's teach kids what it feels like to be in a friendship that is healthy. I don't want to say equal in the way we were talking about before, but equal as in you are wanted there and you want to be there.
Right. No, I think you're spot on that when the kids are really little, especially when you are friends with the kids' friends' moms, right? Or parents, it is a whole different beast, right? That you're like helping coach these little kids as they're on their first play dates and they're, like, that wasn't nice. You took his toy. Like, of course, that's where it's very appropriate, or the other mom sees something or you're like, just so you know, this happened. and it's appropriate. And at some point, and I absolutely think middle school, we've hit that point, it really becomes usually counterproductive. And yet for the parent, I do think it's so hard. And I'm sure you get letters about this. It's so hard because you feel like your friend should be intervening and your friend should be helping. And so it's really dicey. And I hear you, what Lisa, it sounds like, was saying in her, in her episode with you, was just like, if you can avoid it, it's great. I also believe what you're saying is that, oftentimes we make friends naturally in this way. And so I don't know that that's always realistic, but it sounds like it's also healthy to have your own friends and your own identity as adults separate, right? So that if kind of stuff comes up, that isn't like your entire friendship circle.
But in reality, because the parents often are friends, what has to happen next is the adults have to have a very difficult conversation, but you might only need to have it once.
Right.
And that is, especially if you are the parent of the kid who's not being left out, you're the parent of the kid that has the Halloween plan and isn't the kid with nothing to do.
Mm-hmm.
It may be necessary to have a frank conversation with your friend that says, I know that this is so hard. I wish that I can make things different. Like, I think we're
acknowledging it is
acknowledging it.
Yeah,
it really is. I think adults avoid those conversations because it's like, oh, let's just pretend this isn't happening, but it is happening, and it's going to fester in the adult friendship if somebody doesn't have a frank conversation. Even if you're the parent in pain, you're the one who's in pain, because when our kids are in pain, we're in pain. We cannot deny that.
We're wired for that, for sure.
Yes. I think it's okay to also bring it up with your friend and say, I'm not asking you to do anything.
Yeah.
I'm not asking you to get my kid invited.
Right.
I just want you to know that this is really hard for me and I don't want to be upset at you.
Yeah.
And can we just please acknowledge this is horrible? And your friend is probably going to be like, thank you. I didn't know what to say. Yes, this is horrible. I hate this. And together as parents, you can help each other just through these awful years, but helping each other does not necessarily mean fixing it for the kids.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I think that's spot on. Spot on. And this is when I say, like, even though you're not a mental health expert, you clearly get it. And again, you do after 10 years of immersing yourself in this world, and hearing real anecdotes from people. But yes, I think you're right. Just kind of like pushing it in the corner, most likely feelings will fester and it will affect your own adult friendship. So it is important to like have some kind of conversation, but the goal isn't always to intervene and to kind of like meddle in a way that often, again, just doesn't really work. Yeah.
There's a word for the meddling, which I'm sure you hear about, which is social engineering. And it happens a lot. There's a great example is I can see this image of a parent on the camp bus picking out the seat for their kid, making sure that the two kids that are supposed to sit together have the best seat with the best snacks and it's in the best location next to certain kids. I mean, there's a lot of that goes on.
And it happens for good reason. In other words, the parents feel anxiety in those moments for their kid, right? And again, we're wired for this attachment relationship from birth, right? So you're really you're as the parent concerned that if they're anxious, you're going to feel that anxiety. And it's so hard, but parents are going to need to, over time, and it happens more naturally when kids get older, learn to take some deep breaths, learn to understand that even if their kid isn't in the perfect seat or the perfect situation, they're going to get through it and build skills for life, right? Because there's going to be more situations that are uncomfortable in the future. But I think parents and kids, we're all learning how to tolerate that feeling.
Yes. I love how you said that tolerating discomfort is really a difficult skill for kids, obviously, but also for adults. And sometimes, by the way, I have found in my own life, and I've seen it with the people I talk to, the kids are actually okay. Mm-hmm. The grownups really are really more upset. And I've seen it 1,000 times where I've been upset just personally that a kid of mine isn't included in something and they don't even care.
Wow.
I care.
It's a good wake-up call. Yeah.
It is a wake-up call. And it's like, I'll have a stomach ache. And it's like, wait, why do I have a stomach ache over a sixth grader's social experience? That's when you have to step back as a parent and kind of get a hold of yourself. And I don't mean that in a demeaning way. I mean, truly, like you're saying, the deep breaths, the just self-talking and being like, sometimes you have to be like, you're okay. And it is okay for the kids to have an experience where they have to learn how to figure out who they really are friends with, who is a true friend.
Right.
You don't know who your true friends are if your parents have been doing favors or getting favors from their friends on your behalf for so many years.
No, for sure. And I always ask parents too, if they're, like you're saying, if they're having a really big emotional reaction that feels particularly intense, is there something about the situation that's reminiscent in some way to you of something from earlier in your life? Like maybe, like you're saying, the camp bus, you have a horrible traumatic memory from that time. And so, like you said, your kid may actually be totally fine and the personality may be different and they may be navigating it without issue. But for you, you have this like terrible memory of that experience. So it is important to check in with yourself when you're having big emotional reactions to figure out what's mine, what's theirs, how can I make this better and not worse for them, and or just really not involve myself.
Yeah, takes a lot of self-control. It's hard.
So tell us, Nina, in terms of skills that you feel are important to model for your kids, right? Because again, friendships happen in the adult world. And then I do think there's parts that trickle down to your kids in terms of what they observe. What would you say are some of the most important skills? You can name us like 2 or 3.
Okay, my favorite one, and I think it is really underrated, and it's going to be so basic, I think you're going to laugh.
No.
You should be friends with people you like. You as an adult should model that by not constant complaining about your friends in front of your kids. Complaining, even if it's to your partner, whoever. If you are constantly complaining about your friends, and people do, adults do, maybe you don't like your friends. Maybe you don't like the people you're hanging out with. Maybe you just felt those were the people you were supposed to be with. They were the other parents at the school you're at. You should be friends with people you like. And this is something to model for your kids. And this goes into back to the Halloween plans and all of that. Maybe trying to get into a certain group means that you have lost touch with, would you actually like these kids? Or is it a parent? Do you actually like these parents that you're hanging out with? Not all your friends need to be parents,
right. But this group that you somehow landed in.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you're always striving, chasing, feeling like you're not part of something, like first step back and say, like, hold on. Do these people bring out the best in me? Do I actually like these people? If I find myself constantly gossiping about these people or complaining about them or having issue or always getting into, beef, as the kids say, maybe we don't like each other. And it's very basic, but sometimes it's easy to forget that friendship is a choice and you should be friends with people that you like.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I said it. I hear the word choice, right? Like,
yes.
And it's empowering for both adults and for kids and teens to recognize that there is choice. And I know for kids, again, middle school, high school, it's a little trickier to navigate changing groups and the whole, but it is still empowering and it's still accurate that there ultimately is choice in who your close friends are. And you want to, again, empower them to know that about themselves and know that they can find these people, whether it's now or in the future, even if they feel stuck sometimes.
Yeah.
And you're right. Adults, I think, get stuck too sometimes in the wrong group somehow. And just because you're in a tennis group Tuesdays at 5 and you play with the same women, like if these aren't your people, you need to figure that out and not, like you said, just come home and complain about them.
Exactly. And back to the group, if you're part of a group and it doesn't feel that natural with everyone, you have the choice to lean towards the one that you like more. Reach out to them on the side. Ask somebody for plans on the side that you really enjoy. Go on a walk with the one that you connect with the most, so that when you are in a group setting, again, for kids or adults, you feel like you have an ally of some kind. You feel closer with 1 or 2 of them. Yeah. It's okay to not be with everyone all the time.
100%. I was going to say, I think groups are tricky at any stage. Even like the 80-year-olds, right, have stories about groups and the cliques. And I'm like, oh my gosh, does it ever change? And they're like, nope. So the idea that like, connection is often fostered in a much more genuine way and healthier way when there's like one-on-one time, and really being vulnerable with each other and sharing and supporting one another. And in a group, it's not that it's not fine to have group time. It's fun. There's different things you do in a group, but it's not going to, like you say, give you that same feeling as when you have a friendship that you can identify. This person is my friend.
Yes, exactly. Okay. Another skill for making friends and keeping friends. It goes in both areas. And it's another really basic thing people forget about, and that is to ask a lot of questions. It's a great thing to model. It's a great thing to do as an adult and a kid with your friends. And I love the book Talk by Alison Wood Brooks. It's a more current book. It was out in the past, I think in 2025. So Talk, and it's an acronym that stands for a lot of things that people have to read about in the book. Her name's Alison Wood Brooks. She's a professor at Harvard Business School. One of the best things in that book I thought was, so the A is for asking questions, the A in Talk. And she talks about how they've done studies. She conducted the studies at Harvard. People do not ask even nearly as many questions as they think they do. So she would have these people do conversations, and then she would ask them after, okay, well, how many questions did you ask? And everybody overestimated, well, maybe not everybody, but most people overestimated the amount of questions they asked. And they did this study with a lot of people. I thought that was so interesting. And it goes to show that we think we're being more engaging than we are. And people like to be asked questions. That's another thing I hear a lot about from people is they feel their friends never show interest.
Yeah.
So I ask all the questions. Yeah. Right. So showing interest, asking questions, and asking way more questions than you think. It also takes the pressure off. If you're somebody who is worried about what you have to bring to a conversation, you can always rely on asking questions. That's the best thing to bring to a conversation.
I love that. And we talk about that again with younger kids, like we kind of try to, when they're really little, we'll take a ball and we'll throw it to them and they'll have to ask a question and then, throw back just to kind of role play how reciprocal conversation works. And a lot of it is asking questions, right? And then you might add something, but I think you're absolutely right. People want to be able to talk about themselves. They feel like you care, which of course is genuine. When people really ask about you, you know that they care. So that's a great skill. I love that. And that could be, again, for any age.
Yes. And a bonus tip that is tangential to that is not to wait for people to ask you questions. So that's another thing in terms of conversation skills. That's another thing I hear about a lot. Oh, my friend, like I said, never asked me questions, or I don't feel like they care. Some people aren't as good at asking questions. Like, look, this Harvard Business Study showed that most people don't ask as many questions as they think. If there's something that you want your friend to know about you, or you're going through something, nobody's a mind reader, bring it up. I've had to learn to do that with the podcast. So sometimes people don't ask me about the podcast. I always say, I'm sure it's because friends of mine, I've been talking about this stuff for over 4 years on the podcast, over a decade in just the writing. I'm sure my friends have heard it all. And they're a little nervous, I think, to ask me about it because they don't want me to be like, oh, what'd you think of episode 155? And they're going to be like, oh my God, I didn't listen. So I don't wait for them to ask. I just let them know, oh, this is who I'm talking to next week. I'm so excited. This is what we're talking about. Do you have any opinions? I'd love to add it to the show. I just bring it up. And then I don't leave feeling resentful that we didn't talk about it.
I have a couple of clients who are young adults, and they will be very upset when their friends do not, and these are all women, do not ask them about an important event in their life, like a graduation from graduate school or something pretty significant. And I will say to the client, you are a really thoughtful person. And they are. These clients, these two women would write the date down of someone else's important milestone in their calendar. They're organized. They would remember to ask them that day, or to congratulate them that day, right? Depending on the circumstance. But some people are lousy with dates. Some people, again, are just kind of in their own bubble sometimes, but they absolutely care. I mean, these were not bad friendships. And so, like you're saying, it's okay to say, I'm so excited. Next week's the big graduation. Can you believe it? And to remind them instead of assuming they don't care because they didn't ask. I love that.
Yes. And the way to measure that friendship is when you bring it up, does the friend want to hear about it? Are they engaged? Do they then ask questions? If they change the subject immediately, okay, maybe now this is a friendship issue. Right. So, how I said, I'm just trying to help people get out of their own way. That's a perfect example. It's not a friendship issue as long as your friend is enthusiastic when you bring it up. That's just, people have different skills. People are bad with dates. They really are.
No, I mean, birthdays, if I didn't have, again, I've got everything in my, Google Calendar, right? Everyone's birthday. If I lost that, if I had a technological blip, I can't tell you almost anyone's birthday, right? Except maybe 3 in my entire life.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm bad with dates. I'm not a numbers person. But, because I've got an organized system, and I genuinely care about being a good friend and being a good, family member. I will call everyone on their birthday. I will sing them a lovely birthday song. I will
I love it.
make sure they feel special. But yeah, it's like not everybody is going to have that system in place, and it doesn't mean they don't care.
That's right. On my podcast, I do friendship challenges. And one of my challenges, I think it was in April, was to write down your friends' birthdays in your calendar. Because as people are trying to get off social media a bit, like I feel like there's I don't know, it's like a movement, but I feel it in the atmosphere. People really spending less time on Facebook, less time on Instagram and all that, which I think is great. If we're going to continue to encourage that, to be with friends in person and to actually have a real connection, we have relied on that for birthdays for a long time now.
Yeah.
Probably 20 years. A lot of us have been relying on Facebook for birthdays. Okay, if you're going to spend less time on Facebook, you better write your friends' birthdays down.
Absolutely. No, it's true. And some people, going back to your reciprocal idea, some people do these beautiful birthday posts that are like collages and this and that. And you have to do it right when it's their birthday. Well, I am terrible with all things Facebook and technology. It's not my world.
Mm-hmm.
And so I will pick up the phone and sing my birthday song.
That's beautiful.
And I'll say, just so you know, I'm not doing a post because I don't exactly know how to do it. And they don't care.
Yeah.
But some people would read into that and be like, Lee doesn't care about me. She didn't do a birthday post. So you're right. So it's a really good nugget. Give us one more skill before we kind of wind down. I want to make sure we get as much knowledge from you as we can.
I'm trying to give you like less obvious ones, like obviously you should be a good listener, things like that. The next one that I think is really important, and adults absolutely have to model this, is learning to develop a sense of discretion.
Say more about that.
We repeat a lot of things that we shouldn't repeat, and it gets us in trouble. I've done it too. So I say, that's why I say us. It gets you in trouble. A small example, if you have older kids, might be, let's think about college admissions. And so there could be, you know where your friend's kid's applying to school. Your friend told you, like kind of offhand. They didn't say it was a secret or not. Someone says to you, oh, where's so-and-so applying? It's best to learn to say, that it may be even a white lie, like, oh, I don't know, or sounds like a bunch of Midwest schools. So it's good to learn a sense of discretion, that other people's news is not your fodder. Yeah. College admissions is sort of a low stakes one. It could be higher stakes. And it is very hard. I learned this from my mother, who is the most discreet person. It's like, I'm always trying to get stuff out of her. She will say nothing about anything. She really, I'm like, Mom, and I admire it, actually. I'm learning from her that you don't owe people information, especially other people's information.
Right.
And it's just, you want to be the kind of friend that people can confide in. And if you're loose with people's information, even accidentally, I actually like college admissions as an example, because nobody's trying to hurt anyone. This isn't deeply personal. And yet you don't know for sure that someone else wanted you to share that information. Yeah. And if you prove to be somebody who is very loose with other people's information, people are going to stop telling you things.
Yeah. And being able to, like you said, confide in someone or be confided in, right, is often something that brings people closer in friendship. Yeah. It's a very important piece. And so, like you're saying, if you're not trustworthy anymore in that arena, it's less likely that people will open up to you on that level. They might still have coffee with you, or they might still play pickleball with you. But in terms of that deep, meaningful connection, you may risk losing it if someone starts to think you're not someone who can be trusted with personal information.
Yeah, and it's an advanced skill, because I'm not talking about gossip. Yeah. Gossip's a more obvious, like obviously you're trying to, maybe hurt somebody. Right. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about being too loose. Yeah. Not guarded enough.
I love that. I think that's, like you said, not basic. I think that's actually something advanced. That most adults, certainly kids, but most adults really could fine tune. Yeah. And I love what you said, like having a white lie or a vague response is okay, right? Like because you're protecting someone's information that they shared. I think that's beautiful. Or like, I don't know, you should ask her.
You should ask. I was just going to say that, Lee. A great answer sometimes when you don't want to feel like you're lying is, oh, you should ask her. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they've completely decided. You should ask her, which is a very nice way of saying, I'm not going to tell you. Yeah. That's what it says.
Absolutely. And the more you do that, the more people won't actually pry for information, because they'll know that about you. Or I'm sure your mom, it sounds like they don't ask her, because she's not the gossip of the town.
You're right.
She's not the one who's going to share freely, and so yeah, it makes it a lot easier going forward to not have to be put in that situation.
Yes, it is exactly right. If you can develop to be the kind of person people do not pry information from, you have done a very grown-up thing and become discreet.
Yeah, I love that. So what I'm hearing from you is that, adult friendships on their own are incredibly important, right? For our health, for our happiness, for longevity, right? All these things. And it's important that we are able to help our kids by modeling these healthy friendships, and that's a healthier way, especially as they get older, than the meddling or the social engineering or the involving yourself. And again, I hear you. I say that with full respect and non-judgment because, like you said, I'm a mom too, and both of us have been on the end where you really want to pick up the phone and do something. And it may be that you have to share what's happening, but like not ask them to do something overtly for your kids. So I think it's a really tricky thing to be helping your kids with their friendships, and yet, right, we're always put in that situation. So I love this idea of just like, how can you do it a little bit more indirectly through modeling?
Yes, you could see how I've been writing about this for over a decade. It's just endless
so much.
and ageless.
Absolutely. So for the listeners who have enjoyed this episode and are kind of curious about learning more about friendship, whether it's adult friendship or the parenting angle of friendship, what are some resources, whether books, articles, podcasts, that you think they might enjoy?
Well, obviously mine, Dear Nina. And for adult friendships, a book that I really have loved recently is by a friend of mine who I've met through writing about friendship. Her name's Anna Goldfarb, and her book is called Modern Friendships. And she is very practical also. She's also a writer. She's also, like me, a writer, a journalist, not a therapist. She interviews a lot of people for the book, and she has a really nice visual ways of thinking about who are your close friends, who's that next tier, how do we develop that, things like that. And so it's called Modern Friendship, which is a great word because things are different nowadays than when we were all kids. And she's about my age. And then I know we talked about her a lot, but I do love Dr. Lisa for the parenting angle, because even if you just glance at her topics on the podcast, which is called Ask Lisa, it's really specific things to parenting. What do you do if your friend is the one hosting parties?
Mm-hmm.
Or it's actually, no, that would be something I would cover. Her angle would be, should a parent host a party? Sometimes parents say, oh, it'd be safer at my house. I mean, she'll really dive into these things. That's just an example I happened to see recently, but she'll give a much more practical how-to from a parent angle.
For sure. No, she's an incredible resource from the parenting lens. I agree. Well, thank you again so much, Nina. This has been awesome. I so appreciate you sharing your time and expertise. And it was, again, as I told you, such a pleasure to see you in person live doing your podcast the other day. So thank you for including me.
I love it. I love that we could talk as adults. I last time I saw you, you were just a little girl. So it's really fun for me.
It is really fun. And amazing that we're so old at the same time.
Yes, and fabulous.
Everyone, check out more episodes of our podcast. Go to copingpartners.com and click on podcast and articles. And thank you, as always, for tuning in.
Thank you for listening to the Coping Podcast. We'll see you again next time. And be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes. And check out our podcast page at copingpartners.com.